Just in time.
I had to run out to the truck to get the 50 can.
Oh, nice. Nice. Hey, folks, what's going on, everybody? Let's say hi to Witchell. Good to see you. Willie, good to see you. Mike, always good to see you. Jason, John, what's happening, folks? Hey, folks, everybody, welcome to the Dangerous Liberty podcast, where we know the only thing more dangerous than liberty is the lack of it. And tonight, we got a very special guest. I'm going to let him introduce himself in just a few minutes, but just talking to Ray just prior to this, it's already been a fun and interesting discussion. Yeah, so we will be getting into it shortly. If you are on right now and you're watching this, regardless of what platform right now, we got it streaming to YouTube, Rumble, not Facebook, because we're in a timeout on Facebook.
They started taking down my YouTube videos.
Yeah, us too. We just got hit hard. I was off for a week after we've basically we've been actively doing YouTube for about 2 years. We never had any issues. And then I talked to, I think, Ray Helms from X-Ring.
We're good friends with Ray. Yeah, he's from Microtech Knives and Microtech Suppressor.
Yep. Love the dude. We've had him on here. We're planning on doing some courses and some things probably this year. But, anyways, we got hit all of a sudden, and I thought it was odd. So I sent him a quick text. I was like, Ray, hey, we just got, we basically got a warning. And then like 12 hours later, we got hit with a strike, which the weird thing is actually took down my strike today, but they still kicked me off for a week. And then I started pulling anything basically that I thought could even possibly be controversial with YouTube. I started pulling, and we started putting everything over on Rumble. We're still going to play that game a little bit.
That's what I got to start doing, is porting stuff over the Rumble.
Yeah. I definitely got to diversify and come up with some backup plans, because YouTube is not our friend, and I don't want to support them anyhow. So I'm sick of this game they're playing, them, Facebook, and everybody else. And so far, looks like Rumble is for now the easiest. There's some other platforms out there, but I don't know how successful they are. But we would hate to lose our YouTube channel, just because that's, we got so many subscribers. I want to continue to use this as a platform to push people over to our Rumble channel. But Taylor, good to see you. John, Chad Wyckoff, good seeing you guys. Well, Ray, if you will, just again, the 5-10 minutes we were talking before this, I've already learned more about you than I knew quite a bit. I didn't know if you want to talk to everybody about, I don't think anybody, I know I did. I didn't know how deeply you were involved with Thunder Beast. I thought you were just, you worked there. But anyways, I'll turn it over to you. You can talk and tell everybody about you and introduce yourself a little bit.
Yeah, well, my name's Ray Sanchez. I'm one of the owners and founders of Thunder Beast. It pretty much was my brainchild. I was competing in long range tactical competitions, precision rifle stuff after 5 or 6 years as racing mountain bikes pro. Needed to do something. Long range shooting seemed to be the thing. It was fun and interesting, and at the time it was pretty new and starting to grow fast. I was buying suppressors and wasn't really pleased with any of the suppressors I had. I was working at a friend's gun shop. I talked him into getting his SOT so I wouldn't have to drive down to Denver to do transfers. So he's like, well, I'll get my SOT, but you have to come in at least one day a week and, order cans for the store and fill out Form 4s for people, because he had no desire in learning how to do it whatsoever. And I think it was just because I was so enthusiastic with it all that I got him selling so many cans, and we were selling so many cans that we became, a distributor for AAC, Gemtech, and these other companies would call and ask if we were interested in distributorship, because we were buying so many cans and moving them. But at the same time, I realized like the customer service I was getting from some of these companies wasn't very good. I was calling to spend $50,000 and order stuff, and sometimes I couldn't even get a call back. So just because of posting my long range shenanigans and learning curve on Sniper's Hide, I got a direct message one day from somebody saying, hey, I just moved to Cheyenne and I'm looking for people to show me places to shoot. And I went out, I met this guy, Shane. Turns out he was a master machinist in the Navy for 24 years. He was on their rifle and pistol team, double distinguished in both. Also, President's 100 ranking for shooters in that whole military thing. So he was a guy who had a lot of machine experience and he could shoot his ass off. Like, he's a really good shot. So I was just telling him about what was going on, and I showed him, the cans I owned at the time, the several suppressors I owned, and he said they were, fairly easy to make compared to the stuff that he has to make on the fly on the ship. They don't take those big boats out with extra parts. They bring raw materials and drawings, and if something breaks, you got to make it.
Right.
So for him, cones and cylinders were fairly simple. So he was transitioning out of the Navy, and I said, well, maybe it's a good time we can start something. And he thought it was a good idea. And I brought in my friend Zach Smith, who was the third owner. There's 3 of us that own the company equally, and we each have our own little parts that we do. Zach is a EE by trade, but Zach was, especially at the time, was very famous for running he still runs. Zach runs a company called Competition Dynamics, and I've had to step away from running the matches because Zach and I both can't be away in places where our phones don't work for a week, 2 weeks at a time, like it takes to run a match now. But Zach still runs the matches, the Steel Safari, which is probably the hardest solo precision rifle match in the country, I would say, just as far as, walking up, finding the targets to shoot, getting one shot per target. You go into every stage blind. It's not like the PRS stuff where you get to see stuff beforehand, where you get to see your buddy shoot the stage, where you get to share wind calls and stuff like that. It's every stage blind. You go into every stage blind. Don't talk to anybody. It's pretty awesome.
It's pretty cool. And what year was that you guys opened the company?
2007. We've been about 15, 16 years now.
Nice.
That was and the first year, all we did was make prototypes and test. For those of you who remember the old Sniper's Hide, we would get Frank Golly from Sniper's Hide. That he's down Frank in Denver. He's a friend of the company. We would get Frank and the other competition shooters, and we would, just turn our backs and shoot cans. How's this one sound? How's this one sound? Trying to figure out if we were moving the right direction in sound abatement and stuff. So like a lot of companies, we literally started in Shane's garage with a lathe.
Nice.
We got our SOT, and it was for Shane's address, and we had a machine in his garage. Then we graduated from that. We built I think it was 650 square foot Quonset hut next to his house. I don't think his wife was pleased with that, but we went into the Quonset hut. After the Quonset hut, we leased a place, and we leased a place that was about 3,500 square feet. And when you only put 4 machines and 3 or 4 machines in 3,500 square feet, you're like, wow, this is going to last forever. But man, a year later, it was full. We just full. So we were only there a little over a year until we bought the building we're in, which we have, since we bought it, we've covered in the sides and made it a little bigger than we got it. But we're in a good spot now. We have our production facility, and then for those of you who have seen any of our videos, about a year and a half ago, we bought the barn. We bought a pole barn that sits on 11 acres just for the sound testing that we do. Because, relying on weather conditions to go outside and test it's not conducive to keeping your R&D moving. You could literally have 2 months where you cannot test outside.
Sure.
It's just not. So we needed a solution, and the ignorant people out there kind of tease us. They go, oh, these guys are testing in a barn. Yeah, whatever. We designed the Magnus in the barn, which is by far the quietest 30 cal can on the market by now by a decent margin. That was designed in the barn. The Fly 45 was designed in the barn. The Fly 9 was designed in the barn. We've had head engineers and engineers from several other suppressor companies come out to learn how to run their pulse systems in the barn, because we're more than willing to teach other companies how to run the pulse system. It's not like you spend your 35, 40 grand and plug it in, go out and start getting awesome data. It's a pretty complicated system, and we're all about trying to get everybody in the industry on the same page so that we're always comparing apples to apples. So we are more than willing to have people who buy the Pulse system come out to us and teach them how to run it.
Well, yeah, we were talking about that a little bit before we got on here, and that is one of the things that becomes really apparent once you start doing a deep dive into suppressors. And that is, number one, there's a lot of just garbage data out there as far as decibel numbers and things like that.
There is, and to the industry's credit, because you don't know what you don't know. For the longest time, the mil spec and the machines acceptable were the B&K 2209 and the Larson Davis, like that 800B or whatever it is. I don't remember the model number off the top of my head, but that Larson Davis machine. They were old analog machines, and that's what was available, and that's what we thought worked. And until the LANX system from B&K and the National Instruments stuff was starting to be used and compared, we didn't even know. Like, people could have been posting bad data totally unintentionally.
Unintentionally,
because the B&Ks just aren't capable. The 2209, it's a waste of time. It's not even a good enough meter to compare, one stack against another stack in development. It could tell you that stack A is quieter than stack B and be wrong. So I look back at all the time we spent with the 2209s that we do have, all that time going to the range, into development, and the 2209 said this stack is better, so you keep development on that stack, and man, it turns out we could have went the wrong way. We could have taken the wrong fork several times simply because the equipment was not capable, and they still are not. The B&K 2209 and the Larson Davis, even the digital Larson Davis and stuff, they are not capable of accurately measuring gunshots for comparison side by side. They just cannot do it. And it's not an opinion; it's simply science. Like, if you look at the mil spec, they have a what they call a rise time requirement. How quick can the system react and capture stuff, and they have a 20 microsecond rise time. Well, all those other machines have 40 microsecond rise time, so you're missing the peak, right? So the peak is up here and coming down, and that's when they're trying to grab data. So that's bad off the bat. To miss the peak is bad. And then with the digital stuff, they have sample rate. You got to grab so many data points per second, right? And the sample rates are too slow. So besides the rise time being too slow, the sample rate's too slow. So that's not good repeatable data. It's a waste of time is what it is. And people don't like it. And they say, well, it's okay for comparing. It's like, well, no, if you know how to do math and science, it's not okay for comparing. It is literally a waste of time. It's not good enough to do development with. It's not good enough to go on YouTube and say, look, this can is quieter than this can, because it could be wrong.
Yeah.
It's not repeatable data.
Yeah. And folks, if you haven't, definitely go check out Ray Sanchez's YouTube channel. And again, one of the things that I've always liked about Thunder Beast Arms is they're the most transparent and put the most work that I've seen, period, into actual testing and posting those results live, or at least, as they're doing it.
I only post unedited iPhone videos.
Yeah. So you can go check out those videos. A lot of good information on there. I've learned a lot about suppressors. I've learned a lot about their process throughout that. And speaking of, Ray, what without a doubt, Thunder Beast Arms is known as the suppressor to use for long range shooting. I mean, you guys have clearly set the standard in that for repeatability, just again, accuracy and not so subject to point of impact shift. What is it that you guys are doing differently than we're seeing with a lot of the other suppressors out there?
It's a few things. I think I give a lot of credit to our engineers, right? Like, I am definitely not the smartest person in the room, but our engineers are very good. We like to push the limits, like everything we make. I don't think the only can we make that wasn't really made for optimum suppression for its size was the Dominus. But the Dominus is an all titanium can that you could go to the product page and see it survive 11 cycles of the 8 mag SOCOM test.
Right.
There are famous steel cans out there that don't survive 11 cycles of the 8 mag
100%.
SOCOM test, right?
Yeah.
So, as far as I know, still Andrew over at Otter Creek, he likes doing a lot of destruction testing and stuff. And I'm all for that. Go Andrew and Otter Creek. But I believe our Taycan's the only Taycan that survived his full auto test. And again, there's a lot of steel cans that don't survive that. So there's a lot that goes into it. It's everything we make. My attitude is, if it's not the best, like if it's not like our 5-inch can, the Ultra series we make in 5, 7, and 9-inch, 1.5-inch diameter cans. Like if it's not the best in its form factor, why make it? It's easier for me to go to the store and buy something on my SOT. I don't even have to wait. I could like wait 2 days and have something, right? So it has to be worth our time to do. And the way it becomes worth our time is to make something as light, as strong, and as quiet as possible, especially since we focus on bulk guns. So it's a closed system. I'm not really so worried about blowback, or I hate the term, people say flow through design, props on them for coming up with that, but that just means your suppressor's loud and doesn't suppress. You can't have flow through and good suppression numbers. Like it just doesn't work that way.
Sure.
So we science pretty hard, the engineers spend a lot of time crunching numbers and figuring out wall thicknesses and pressures, and then we actually build and go test stuff. Like I'm pretty sure we test everything we release probably harder than any company. We put lots of rounds through, like with this 50 cal project. I've got, before SHOT Show, I did 2,400 rounds, 10 rounds at a time, like in that video I put there in the comments. That gets the can to 1,000 degrees, the 10 rounds as fast as you can. We cycle through that. We'll do 4,000 rounds like that. I got a lot of accuracy testing we're doing on longer barrels and stuff, but that's a 16-inch 50 that we're beating up.
Right.
So our goal is, no first round pop, as light as possible. I think we do a lot more hands-on than other companies as far as checking every suppressor that leaves the shop. I mean, anything that leaves our shop, all suppressor companies get the calls, right? Oh, I put my can on my gun and it was shooting great, but I put it on and now it opens up because I'm kissing the baffle, or I'm kissing the end cap, or I got a baffle strike. And I always say, well, you didn't mount it right, or whoever did your threads did a bad job on the threads. They're like, well, how can you say that? I use famous gunsmith so-and-so. I'm like, because we check every suppressor, like every suppressor that leaves our shop gets put on a spud and checked for OD run out and exit end run out. We check every one. If it's not in spec, it doesn't leave the shop. And one of the first things I do when I get competitors' cans in the shop, either transferring for customers or, anything interesting I get to test, let's be honest, we all have everything, right?
Sure.
It's not just about sound suppression. Everything we make is the lightest and quietest for its size. Like there is no quiet a 5-inch can. There is no quiet a 7-inch can. The Ultra 9 inch and a half diameter Ultra 9. The only way companies could get quieter than that was to go to a fatter diameter can. Right. Nobody has an 1.5 inch, 9-inch can that meters like that. No one has a 7-inch can that meters like that. The only way they could do it was to go fatter. Well, when we went fatter, we ended up with the Magnus, which is, it's by far the quietest 30 cal can out there.
Yeah, we got one of the Magnus on the next order, and that's definitely one of the next videos I'm going to do. I'm pretty excited to test that. I still think I'll end up saying that the Ultra 9 to me for a bolt gun, folks, I think is just like the perfect. It's so ridiculously light. It is quieter than
presidents.
What's that?
That's a can that protects the president whenever you see him.
Nice.
That used to be a big brag, right? Now I don't know, but but still, it's the can that the Secret Service selected.
100%. As a matter of fact, we had a Secret Service guy out visiting our shop the other day. But that Ultra 9 to me is just like the perfect. It's the perfect weight. It's not too long. It's not too heavy.
But
I found
if you're willing to go 9 inches, you might as well go a little fatter and get the quietest thing on the planet.
Yeah, and that's what I'm looking to do. I plan on testing, but I'll tell you, you know, I couldn't even believe the obviously the 338 Ultra is quieter than the Ultra 9. There's no doubt about it. But I think the 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 weight, the size ratio, what you get with that Ultra 9 to me is just it's just the perfect, it's the sweet spot. It really is the Goldilocks cans, and I am excited to try that Magnus. There's no doubt about it.
It is a very good can. Our best selling can is our Ultra 7 though, because it suppresses extremely well for its size. And
Yep.
then, you know, not having any first round pop, which is something we design. You know, most suppressors do have a fairly significant first round pop. You can watch our videos. We don't have any.
Yep.
It's for the hunting crowd. It suppresses well enough and it's light enough, especially the Gen 2s are only like 8 ounces right now. So it's fairly lightweight. It's pretty impressive, I think.
No, it absolutely is. Absolutely is. I got this one. This is kind of my the one that I have for that bolt gun up there. But again, I always find myself going back to the Ultra 9. I just like it. And I always, and it's fun to run the 338 Ultra because it is ridiculously quiet and also looks cool on there too. But it is.
Yeah, I knew we were doing things right when people started telling me that at a lot of matches they have a special little range officer meeting to tell them how to activate the shot timers with our cans. Because especially when you go to the Magnus and the 338 on the smaller calibers, the sub calibers,
Yeah.
they're quiet. I mean, we can show if you guys watch and want to learn a little bit about the sound testing and how we do it. If you go watch my education video #1, I did that video because now we have suppressors that are quieter than the sonic crack of the round. And for an example, in the video, we use a 20-inch 308. You know, we know for a fact that a 20-inch 308, right at the muzzle, as soon as that bullet comes out of the suppressor, it has a 132.5 dB sonic crack. But the Magnus gets the blast down to about 125 dB. And there's a couple of the other larger cans like the Nomad LT and the big Otter Creek PL30 or whatever it is, you know, they're below the crack too. So if we didn't exclude that crack, those cans would meter exactly the same.
Right.
And we were actually out metering for the new 50 can yesterday. And the first string of the day was super consistent, like 140.8, 141.1, 140.7. And when we see numbers that consistent, you know, on a string, that tells us it's the sonic crack. So then we grabbed the sound wave, and sure as shit, it was the crack we were picking up because the suppressor itself was actually getting the blast down to about 137 dB. So, you know, as an industry, that's something we have to work on right now is a true standard that does include that crack because it is there and your ears do experience it.
Right.
But as far as a heads up test right now of, you know, suppressor A to suppressor B, if you don't exclude that crack on the cans that are quieter than the crack, they would meter exactly the same. Right?
No, that makes sense.
And
Speaking
then for
of,
someone like me, it's not just sound. Like I was saying, when I get other cans into the shop, I look at the welds right away, you know. Can I see the start and stop of the welds? Because that's not cool. But on
right.
just about all of them, you can. I don't like that. That's not the fit and finish. Like those cans you have in front of you, those are all tubeless cans, right? Where are the welds on those cans in front of you?
You can't see them. And that's one of the things I talked about in the video that I did on just comparing the Ultra series, the 7, the 9, and the 338. And again, I got a couple cans back there that I can put up against these. And folks, again, the fit and finish on this, everything about it, it just looks like a much more refined, looks like somebody took some pride in what they did.
Yeah, people are usually shocked
together
when
a
I
product.
tell them that, yeah, people are usually shocked when I tell them that those are tubeless cans. They're like, what? They think there's a tube on the outside. That's why they don't see weld marks.
Right. So they just think it's a sleeved.
Yeah, it's not sleeved. The only can we make that has a tube is the 22 takedown. Everything else is tubeless. It's just when you look at it, you can't see the weld. So I look at the weld quality. Um, I'll have somebody in the shop put a spud, thread a spud, and then I'll chuck it up and I'll check the body, the outside diameter for
Hmm.
wobble and run out. But then really important is I check the exit end, the hole in the exit end. I'll check that for run out. And that stuff makes a difference.
Oh,
It all makes a
100%.
difference. And that's where at SHOT Show a few years ago, one of the best compliments we ever got, we had just, I think, 7 338 suppressors to, this foreign unit. And this guy comes over and he was their armorer. And he just wanted to talk to me and the engineers to say he was so impressed because the first thing he did before he put any hands on any of the rifles was he threaded a spud and checked every can for run out. And he said he'd never seen cans so straight. And
Yeah.
he asked how we wire EDM them like so straight. And I told him we don't even have a wire EDM machine in the shop. We do not wire EDM our bores. We take a lot more time than other companies in assembling our cans. I think we pay a lot more attention to welding and how we weld and the equipment welding, and we build our suppressors straight because everything we've learned for long range accuracy is that bullet is going through the bore, and obviously if you hit you're going to have a problem, but what we've learned is you could just get really close to one of those baffles or that baffles as it's going through, and
Hmm.
that's just enough to start that bullet to start moving a little bit. So you'll still get a good 100-yard group, but if you're shooting at 1200, now you don't even know, did I mess up that wind call or is that because I started disrupting that bullet inside my can a little bit? And now by the time I got to 1200, it's having more, the wind is affecting it more than it should because it's not flying as straight as it's supposed to be. So everything kind of goes off, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we
No,
take a lot of pride in building our can straight.
and and that's one of the things I talk about all the time, folks. Is that is what long range is all about, is consistency, and that really does what you just talked about that I didn't know, as far as just your quality control and everything that you guys are doing with those. That to me, I think sounds like the biggest difference in the consistency that you're going to get with these versus some of the other cans. It's not just a matter of getting a product that's good enough.
Right. We test hard. We test real hard.
And the folks, again, I can't even, how these cans are still, especially if you have other cans and you put one of these on your gun or just hold it. I mean, it is actually pretty hard to believe how light these cans actually are, which also makes a big difference with that point of impact shift, obviously, when it's hanging off the end of your barrel. So, we're glad to be a dealer for you guys. And, I'm a nerd when it comes to that stuff anyhow. So getting to hear some of the backstory. And speaking of which, you also talked about something that I didn't realize. You talked about, so how many engineers do you guys have on staff and audiologists? I thought that was pretty
Well,
interesting.
so we don't have any audiologists on staff, but
Okay.
I mentioned that I don't want to say we're spearheading it, but I kind of went around SHOT Show a couple of years ago saying,
Hmm.
look, there's equipment available now that's good enough for us all to be comparing apples to apples, right? It's not cheap
Right.
to go buy the Lanex. You could get away with the National Instruments stuff a little cheaper, but you're still going to spend a fair amount of money. By the time you buy a laptop powerful enough, and you're going to be between 25 and 30 grand to accurately capture gunshots. But
Right.
it's the way to do it. Like, the argument, well, this was $5,000, it's good enough. No, it's not. Like, and again, it's not my opinion. Science is science. And when you can't grab the peak and you're not sampling fast enough, you just get crappy data, So
Right.
the ASA, the American Suppressor Association, which most suppressor manufacturers, are a part of and behind, they saw the need too. So they hired a group of audiologists, and I say we, but mostly us at Thunder Beast, the first 6-8 months was just kind of showing them what we are capable of and how good cans have gotten over the years. And, it took a little bit to show them, look, we do have suppressors that are quieter than the sonic crack. And yes, we can grab the sonic crack, and I could separate the sonic crack, and I could show you it consistently with different suppressors in the same exact spot. You know what I mean? So we had to get them up to speed just because they weren't really gun guys,
Right.
They, 6 guys with PhDs, or guys and girls with PhDs on audiology, but not necessarily gun people, right? So it took a little bit to get them up to speed. But we had a meeting last week, and they presented a pretty good argument for moving the shooter's ear mic. We typically put the shooter's ear mic about 3 inches right offside the shooter's right ear.
Mhm.
And typically the right ear, because, on 99% of the ARs, except for you lefties who buy lefty ARs, that's where the ejection port is. So
Yep.
that is the louder side. So if you look at all those videos I've posted, that's what we've done. They've had concern with different sized bodies and heads affecting that. So they want to see it back at like 135 degrees. And they presented a pretty decent argument for that. So we're doing some testing with that right now with them, and stuff it's moving forward. It's not as fast as I'd like, obviously, because I think the overall game plan is a true ANSI standard, you
Mhm.
know? So that takes a lot of documentation, a lot of time, but it's happening. And as a whole, I think I saw about 27 or 32 people at one point on that call. So all industry people, all suppressor companies listening in and voicing their opinions and concerns. And it's going to take a little time, but again, we finally have the equipment, that you could buy, that everything is good enough where we can actually come up with a real standard that is repeatable by anybody with the right equipment. So if I post something and somebody doesn't agree, they could say, hey, that's bullshit, Ray, and here's us testing it, and here's why, or vice versa, right? Um, I think that's a win for the industry. It's going to take some time, but overall, I'm really glad to see it happening because it is needed. There's a lot of stuff that's happened in the past with people posting numbers with 2209s, and again, to defend them, you could post bad data unintentionally.
Right.
We used to think, as an example, we used to think atmospherics made a difference, right? You would think testing in Florida versus out here in the Rocky Mountains in winter would be a big difference. And with our 2209s, when we would test, we'd go out in the morning, and it's out here. It's pretty common in the winter to have a 40, 50-degree temperature swing in a day. We would see the numbers rising as things got hotter and as the density altitude got higher, right?
Yeah.
So we used to think atmosphere made a difference, and we used to be like, well, there's the conditions we shot in. But since we got our pulse system and using a control can, the first 2 years we had it, we saw 0.8 dB spread. So plus or minus zero point 0.4 over 2 years in all conditions.
Really.
That's
So
like
yeah,
phenomenal.
I know temperature affects the speed of sound. So you're saying
It
for the
does,
most.
but on microphones are only a meter away. So you're looking at
Gotcha.
a microsecond for
Gotcha.
that. So again, if we were further out, you can account for that. But in 1 meter, in 1 microsecond, it's not making a difference.
Oh, I mean, that makes sense being the close proximity with that. And folks, if any of you have questions, you guys know the deal. Feel free to throw them
Fire
up there
away.
and
You got
comment.
me.
And while we're looking at that, Ray, why don't you pull out that 50 cal can? Because I'm pretty interested to see
All
that
right.
thing in person. When are you
So
guys
this
looking
was,
at possibly offering that for production?
if everything goes super smooth, I'm hoping to take orders this summer. We've had to order bigger chucks for the machines because we start with 2.5 inch. This starts life as a 4 foot, 45 pound, 2.5 inch diameter bar of titanium. It's
Wow.
modular. I don't know how much you can see here. I have to get back. This is the full configuration. I don't know if you can see, but there's right here's a break,
Right.
a cut. So this comes off. This section here is an extra 4 baffles. And then there's a break here. So you could run short configuration, which is about 15 inches, and a flat cap or the break. You can run the long configuration, flat cap or break, or the way you really want to shoot it though on a 50. is you want to shoot this full 22-inch version. It weighs 4.6 pounds. And again, it started life as a 45-pound bar
Wow.
to get down to this. It's modular. I don't have the tools because we put it together and I was shooting it quite a bit yesterday, so I'd have to break these
Yeah, no
hard.
worries.
It screws apart. The brake comes off for timing. It's not that heavy. You know, at SHOT Show, everybody was picking it up, and when I'd hand it to them and it was only 4.6 pounds, they're like, wow, like they expected it to be heavier.
Yeah.
And that video, I don't know if they all see that link in the video the way I sent it to you, but that's a 10-round test cycle on a 16-inch Accuracy International. We chopped the barrel to 16 inches. I could have went shorter, but I don't own this Accuracy International. This gun actually belongs to Accuracy International, so I didn't want to SBR it on them and send them back to SBR.
Send them back a chop barrel.
Yeah.
No, Mike, and you expressed that completely. I saw that. I was like, I need a 50 cal just so I can have that on there.
Well,
I can't wait to see the price point on that.
It's going to start with a 5. There's no doubt about
that's what I figured.
And then more expensive than that though is like, so right now it's not fun to shoot a 50. Like, let's be real. If you're shooting, you know, I taught for Barrett for a couple of years, a lot of their long range 1 and long range 2 classes at the after Blackwater. They called it something else, I forget, Zwi or something, out there. So I used to go out there every couple months and teach long range 1 and long range 2 on 50s. You know, the brakes are effective for reducing recoil. They get it down to about a 12 gauge, but the concussion is just horrible. Like, the concussion beats everybody up who's in the area, and the shooter gets that massive whack to the head. And after 15, 20 shots, you got
a headache.
More. Yeah, you're not sharp, that's for sure. You're not going to be your best. I shot probably 80, 90 rounds yesterday off of a really right stuff tripod. I probably did about 30 or 40, and then I shot another 40 rounds literally off a bench, just because that's the worst. You know, you get more recoil off the bench than you do laying down prone because you don't get your whole body behind it. So just to see what it was like, and I was able to spot my own shots at 600 and 700 yards, which is good. We have a lot of accuracy testing to go, and thankfully I have thousands and thousands of rounds of 750 AMAXs sitting around waiting for me to shoot them. But a design parameter was you need to be able to lay down prone, shoot 100 rounds with foamy earplugs, you know, not big, crazy, expensive headsets, and put in foamies, and you should be able to shoot a gun, you know, for a better part of the day. And we achieved that. You know, recoil is there. You can't get rid of the recoil totally. The only way to get rid of the recoil would be to, you know, face these ports back more. Well, the more I face these ports back, the more concussion the shooter's going to feel.
Yeah.
So it's finding that blend. And, you know, some of the early prototypes we shot in the full configuration like this were metering about 135 dB at the ear. I think with the current brake design, we found a pretty good balance of recoil and sound abatement. So we have it in that setup there. It's about 140 dB everywhere. It's, you know, we're getting the blast down to below the sonic crack to about 137, 138. Shooter's ear numbers are right about 140, which, you know, for a 50 BMG, you could do that with foamies in and be comfortable and shoot 100 rounds prone in a day and be okay.
Yeah, I'll be honest, shooting the Barrett, you know, I never really minded the recoil, but like you said, you shoot 20, 30 rounds or so, and you're walking around the rest of the day, you're rattled, and your head, you know, again, you have a headache, feel like your sinuses are freaking all blowed up.
Some militaries around the world have a 20 round limit for a day if you're shooting something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
because it's like getting hit in the head, literally. I mean, that concussion it's you know, force. It's a shockwave going through your brain. So our goal was to mitigate that tame recoil, and make the 50 pleasant to shoot. So what's going to happen though is you're going to shoot your 50 more with this because it makes it shootable.
Yep, and you better have deep pockets for that. All that, especially
All
that
that
aim
ammo.
you got right there. But yeah, we'd go out and shoot on the sniper team, man. We'd go out and shoot a couple 100 rounds each in a day. And my wife's watching this. I'm sure she's probably saying that explains a lot. But there's no doubt, man. That percussion freaking rocks your world. There's no doubt about it. After a while.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Anybody have any technical questions or anything they want to talk about specific? Or you just want me to yak?
You're doing a good job, Rich. Yeah, I could tell you, man, you should have emailed me or something on that. I definitely have a dead air Sam NS, and I think I've talked a little bit about some of the issues that I've had with that. But I'll tell you what, you hold that next to any of these on the table other than the 338 Ultra, and the weight difference on that Sandman is pretty significant. But
yeah, but Pappas is a cool dude.
What's that?
But Mike Pappas is a cool dude.
Mike Pappas, yeah. Without a doubt.
Yeah, again, we're a little different. We have really concentrated on the precision bolt gun market, and then the big deviation for us was the Dominus. That's a pretty cool can. It's 7 inches.
I love it. Yeah.
7 inches, 12.5 ounces. I think quite possibly the best all around can out there. It is the first can we made that wasn't made for optimal suppression, but it is a all tie can that can survive 11 cycles of the 8 meg SOCOM test. If you want to shoot, I see John asked a question. If you want to shoot 300 PRC, you really want a Magnus.
There you go. Get the Magnus, folks. Again, I should have one. We just paid our invoice, so you guys should be shipping those to our next shipment in pretty soon. I think I got a couple of the Magnus in there. I'm pretty stoked to be testing that out.
It's quiet, man. You'll be surprised how quiet it is.
And yeah, so John, we can definitely square you away on one of those. Which TBAC would be the best for both 6.5 and 308 with the most sound suppression? That's you, Ray. Ask.
Just the Magnus is the quietest can. So if you're willing to go to a 9-inch long suppressor, like in my eyes, the Magnus kind of makes the Ultra 9 go away, because it's not so much the diameter of the can, it's the overall length of the can, because you're adding length to the overall system. So if you're willing to go with a 9-inch can, I'll take the few extra ounces and run a Magnus, just because it is the quietest 30 cal can on the market by a decent margin right now.
Well, yep.
And I have videos. You could go see the videos I've posted on the Magnus heads up with other cans, on 300 Norma and 308 and even 6.5. It's ridiculously quiet. I think on a 6 Creedmoor, I think a dry fire, a live round to shoot his ear versus a dry fire was only like, I think maybe 3 dB different.
on the Magnus.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I do have a 6 Creedmoor video. Now, let me see if I'll throw it in the chat if I can.
Yeah, and folks, depending on what platform you're on, I'm not sure. A lot of times we're not seeing. Again, Rumble's still in sort of a development phase. We're definitely not seeing, and I haven't been checking my phone, but we're not seeing comments from Rumble. I'm probably not seeing comments. Well, I know I'm not seeing comments from Facebook right now because, again, we're in a timeout there. But so basically, for us to see those comments, guys, if you will switch over to YouTube for now, hopefully Rumble's going to continue to get better. They've gotten better just in the last couple of months. Hopefully they'll continue to make improvements and where we can do that.
Here you go. We're back over here. Firefox. All right, I got the link. How do I drop the link in here?
Go to, again, I don't know what you're seeing versus what I see, Ray. You can
here. Not the private chat.
That's not excluding.
Oh, is it because I'm not logged in?
I'm not 100% sure. So there on my side, it shows comments over here. And I'll just share my screen for a second here.
If I go into, hang on, if I go into the private chat, you could share it. Yeah, I
Yep.
just put it into the private chat. You could share it.
Okay. It's comment private chat. Okay, there we go. I will throw that up there.
And if they want to see, it's pretty interesting because that's the Magnus on a 6 Creedmoor, and you could see that, a live
This
round
one,
versus.
I think the one I just shared might be the 50 cal guys. Let me go in here and grab this other one. And the private chat. Yeah, here we go.
And then we learned a lot too when we did this. After we did the Dominus and stuff, which was, again, the first can we made that wasn't made for optimal suppression. We wanted a lightweight tie can that you could put on a 10.5-inch SBR and run it hard, or put it on a 300 PRC sniper rifle. And, we wanted to make a really, really good all-around can. Then we started messing with pistol cans. We did the Fly 9 last year. We came out with it. And what we learned when we started testing all the best pistol cans was the performance ceiling. The 3 or 4 best cans, they're all the same. So That's it. That's as good as you could hope to be. So the game became, well, how do we match the performance of these bigger, heavier cans in a smaller, lighter package? And, we did it. We have the Fly 9. It's meters better than most. It's lighter than all of them. It's the lightest 9mm can. It's modular. You can run it in short configuration on a pistol. You don't even notice it, which is pretty awesome. With, on a 9mm with the 165 hush, this is pretty awesome. Just screw the end cap back on. But
Even with full power ammo, it's ridiculously quiet.
Yeah.
I was shocked when I first shot that, and that's the next suppressor video that I'll be doing is on the Fly 9.
It's light, it's quiet, for its size. It's stronger than some of the steel cans. It gets the 350 legend rating and stuff like that. Same thing with the Fly 45. It's same thing. We realized there was performance ceiling. Well, how do you match the performance of the best cans in a smaller, lighter package and have it stronger? So like our Fly 45 is rated, for 450 Marlin and 4570 Supers. There's steel cans that you can't put on a 4570. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, when I first saw the Dominus SR, where you guys were doing the SOCOM testing on that, and it was passing, I was shocked to hear about it. I honestly didn't think that there was going to be a titanium can that was going to hold up to that cycle testing. So, and folks, again, I've been running this on my AR. I was apprehensive about getting the SR, but honestly, I'm thinking about every can that I can order with the I just like the way this thing locks up. Especially as a guy, speaking of which, the Sandman S, I've had this fly off my rifle twice. And it is a pretty nice, comforting feeling having that secondary retention on there, knowing that thing is not going anywhere, and it's just solid.
I'm sorry. We spent 4 years on that mount.
I believe
4 years, because it's the only mount I'm aware of that was made for precision rifles. All the other mounts out there, I don't want to knock anybody, but they're not for precision rifles. If you're kicking doors or, shooting a coyote at 100 yards, whatever, they're good enough.
Sure.
But they all leak gas. They all have a little bit of wigglage. Like when I put a can on a QD mount and I test it, I put the can on, I lock it, I grab the can, and if I could wiggle that can with my bare hand, what's going to happen when 20,000 PSI gets uncorked into that can, right? It burps gas. They leak gas out the back. It took us 4 years to get that mount right because, you work on something, you build prototypes, you go out and you start shooting the prototypes and put 5, 6, 7,000 rounds on it. And then you start seeing some kind of a problem. And then you waste 4 or 5 weeks trying to fix that problem when you realize the answer is to scrap the whole thing and really start again. So it took a while, but we weren't going to release a mount that wasn't as accurate and as repeatable as, you know, a sniper rifle can needs to be. You
Right.
know, so that's why there's videos of me shooting the SR online, taking the can on and off between shots and shooting sub half minute at 1,000 yards because
Wow.
it has to be that good.
Yeah, and the Magnus comes in SR as well, right?
Yeah, the Magnus comes SR, the 338s come SR. We do not have the SR on the Ultra Series because the Ultra Series are only 1.5 inches,
Right.
whereas anything that the SR is on is a 1.8 inch diameter can because the collar itself is like 185. So
Yeah.
we
Well,
can't
I think that
retrofit
might be the move when I get the Magnus in, and if I'm willing to give up my Ultra 9 for that, I think I'm just going to move to SR mounts on all my guns. And because
Right.
I was like, you know, that's more weight. It's man, once you put it on a rifle and you feel solid, and like you said, you know, coming from SOCOM, we were always issued I believe it was the Surefire can, but it had a secondary retention collar on it. And just like you said, you could take that whole thing. We would get baffle strikes on those all the time. You could take the whole thing and wiggle it around. And again, it may be because I don't know if it was the gun issue or it was the suppressor issue. But there was definitely a lot more tolerance in there than there should have been, and it was not a tight lockup. Which immediately from that point on, I was not a fan of secondary retention collars for that reason, and they would get carbon locked too.
It took us a while. I see some questions here. What's the best suppressor for a Sea King's Havoc? If you're 6.5 PRC and you want dedicated 6.5 cans, we do make the ultras and dedicated 6.5. And if you're, again, size and weight conscious because you want to hunt with this thing, I would recommend probably the Ultra 7 and 6.5 because that would be a small package with the best suppression for 6.5 you're going to get. But if suppressor size doesn't matter and you're taking it from your car and putting it on the bench or shooting off your deck and shooting coyotes at night, the Magnus is going to be the quietest thing. I saw Q, what's recommended for an AR-15? For AR-15s, either the Dominus or the Dominus K, depending on what size you want.
Yeah, personally, I'm not a big
3DB.
fan of the most of the K configured cans, just because, again, kind of what we were talking about earlier is the fact that, you know, if you put a suppressor on there and you want it quiet,
you want suppression, right? But we have guys come to us and say, you know, again, I get this isn't everybody, but we literally have guys come to us and say, it's going to be on this and I need to be able to point it up and not hit the damn windshield, right? They need to be able to fire through the windshield and not have a suppressor come up and hit. So they're like, if this was 2 inches shorter, I could have my stock extended and pointed at the windshield. And so I understand K cans for, operators.
No, there's definitely some close quarter situations where it would be, advantageous, but it is
size.
what it is.
Yeah, they just care about size. 419, for the most part, the 419 stuff we have seen used has not caused any problems. They did have a bad run, I remember a while ago, where stuff was not concentric. So again, whenever you run a suppressor, take your bolt out or your bolt carrier group, whatever, if it's on an AR, and actually look and make sure you don't see any mooning, any half mooning going on. Make sure you see a nice round, clean circle when you look through, and you could avoid any unnecessary strikes.
Also, of course, they're not cheap, but you can get alignment rods, all those other good things.
I don't understand the, oh my goodness, 3DB question, if you want to clarify.
Which question was that?
Somebody said, oh my God, 3DB.
Oh, yeah. He's talking about 3DB between, I think you said it was dry fire versus the live
Roger.
fire.
Yeah. Watch that video. It's pretty cool. The Rugged Surge 762 is a pretty good can. It's solid. Rugged makes a solid can. We kind of lead though in suppression. Our stuff's quieter and lighter being tie. So again, depending on your use, that Dominus is hard to beat for what it is. You can run it hard on a 10-inch AR. You could put it on a dedicated precision rifle and go shoot a match, and you could shoot sub half minute groups at 1,000 yards with it taking the can on and off between shots if you want.
Ray, what's the challenge? And I know there's definitely a lot more pressure. What's the biggest challenge when you start getting into, 6-inch barrels and things like that? What's the real issues behind that?
It's the pressure and the heat that's put into the suppressor,
Gotcha.
so at some point, tie is not the right material.
Right.
But what's realistic, I mean, that 8 mag SOCOM test, that's a pretty unrealistic firing schedule. I've never been in the military or anything like that. I'm not trying to pass myself off as some badass, but I shoot quite a bit. My job gets me behind the trigger a lot. I'm fairly good at it. I deal with people who do it for a living. And I see why they make that test so hard, right? And they want a can to be able to survive. I believe they say 6 cycles for SOCOM to actually think about buying a suppressor. But most uppers cannot survive 6 cycles of the SOCOM test.
Yeah.
You will have problems. You will have misfeed issues. And then if you watch that video we put up, it is time lapsed. What nobody can solve is, the brake is right there on the end of the barrel, right? I mean, the brake is right there.
Right.
And that becomes molten hot in that firing schedule. For those not familiar with the 8 mag SOCOM test, it's 8 30-round mags. It's supposed to be done on a 11.5-inch. We did it on a 10.5-inch for a little extra pressure, a little extra worst case scenario. First mag is 1 round a second. Second mag is 2 rounds a second. Third mag is 3 to 5 burst. And then you go 1, 2, 1 again. And then the 8 mag number 8, you just dump. So it's 240 rounds in less than 4 minutes. And the problem is the brake becomes cherry red. And with that much pressure coming out of the muzzle, it starts to push that hot metal out. The metal flows. There's no way around it. So if you watch that video, you'll see after 4 cycles, we have to change the brake because the brake is getting so fat, we wouldn't be able to get the suppressor off the brakes. And the brakes are coming apart. Whereas you could look at the same brake with 15,000 rounds on a 338 Lapua Magnum and the brake is fine. But a few of those surge cycles and, the brakes are coming apart.
I don't know if you answered this question, but will the Magnus ever come naked?
We don't typically sell stuff unpainted, but you could probably call and order one. Every now and then people ask for it. We do it every now and then. What happens over time is, though, especially if you use it and you start putting heat into the can, it'll discolor. It's not going to stay shiny. They come out looking pretty pink, but you put it on an AR and start running surge cycles and stuff, it's not going to look like that anymore. But
it won't match your rims anymore after that.
Yeah, it won't match your rims, but it doesn't affect anything. It's just paint.
Yeah. I'm just looking back through here, see if there's any other questions that we missed. Here we go. For working up reloading day with the obvious back pressure and semi-autos.
If you add a suppressor to a system and it's making the load hot, you are pretty much on the ragged edge anyway. So in general, no. If you are on the ragged edge and you add a suppressor to a bolt gun, yes, you are increasing a bit of back pressure. So you might have to drop a couple tenths grain of powder or something. But that means you're close anyway. You know what I mean? You were very close. That's how I like to load all the powder. I want all the speed. All the speed.
You're not seeing that issue though coming off of factory.
No, with factory ammo and stuff, no, you shouldn't have any problems. Most factory ammo is pretty conservative. And then with gas guns, if you're gonna have the discussion, you gotta have the discussion, right? To properly suppress a gas gun, you have to deal with the amount of gas coming back. So at minimum, you need a really good adjustable gas block, like the rifle speed gas block or something like that, to be able to dial that down. And a really good video that I have posted, if you look at again, you go to my name, Ray Sanchez, as the poster, and look at Thunder Beast gas port testing. I shoot the Dominus on a 10.5-inch with a standard 076, so 76,000th gas port, versus a restricted gas port of what we found we like for the Dominus and stuff is a 058 gas port. And I believe you see like a 12 to 14 decibel difference at shooter's ear.
Oh, really?
That's huge.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, yeah,
that is huge.
because, and it's, if you ever come visit me, you could try them and you will see an 058 gas port with a Dominus on the end is the best suppressed shooting SBR you will ever shoot. Because we get it
Nice.
to low 130s, mid 130s all the way around. That's mil spec and shooter's ear. It slows down the bolt speed to where it's supposed to be. It's super, super smooth. It's no gas in the face. It's extremely pleasant to shoot that way.
Yeah, with that now felonious rifle or pistol that I have right behind me, that has a 6-inch barrel on it. I originally had the Sandman on there, but I definitely it had I forgot, I think it's the Odin Works adjustable gas block. I'm not sure which one, but folks, so that's the thing. Once you start, playing around with those gas pressures and you're with a semi-auto, you got to tune it. And you got to spend some time working on it. You've completely changed that entire system. It's like putting a different engine in a car. You can't leave the same transmission. You gotta spend some time on it.
Like if you're into hot rods and you go from a 300 horsepower motor to a 500 horsepower motor, well, you better be doing something to your rear end and traction because
100%.
you're just going to spin your wheels, right?
Yep.
And the same thing happens. You can't have it both ways. You can't get good suppression at the muzzle and not expect a shooter's ear number to get louder because that gas is coming back in the system. So, I mean, the best way to do it is have a really good adjustable gas block, or if you're willing to say, hey, look, I'm only going to shoot suppressed. This is a suppressed system.
Yep.
Restrict the gas port size off the bat, and you don't even have to deal with mechanical stuff. It's just awesome off the bat, but it will not typically run unsuppressed.
Yep. And folks, that's typically the way that I do that is if I want a gun that's going to basically, I'm trying to tune it to get as best I can suppressed with the least amount of blowback. And I still want to be able to run that gun unsuppressed if I had to, is basically you play around with that tuner until you're getting a bolt lock, both suppressed and unsuppressed, trying to reduce that blowback as much as possible, but you're still going to get a bolt lock if it is unsuppressed as well. So, and like I said, it's a compromise, and that's what, we've been kind of hitting on this, and I've talked about this in the past. You got to figure out what's important to you on a suppressor on the gun, figure out the right suppressor for the right gun. And especially if you're going with a gas gun, you got to do some tuning work. There's no way around it. OG Steve said, I had a SIG AR-10 762 Patrol and I could never get the gas tuned. I don't know what you mean by that, Steve. I don't know if they had a adjustable gas block on that or what.
Well, they do. So, this is all still pretty new, honestly, dealing with gas guns. The military wants to suppress everything. Police agencies, federal agencies, they want to suppress stuff. But, they're hesitant to mess with port sizes and stuff right now. They're stuck a little bit more to tradition. Whereas I can make anything I want whenever I want and be like, look how good this is. I just dropped in the private chat 2 different ammos, 2 different uppers, the same exact uppers with just different gas port sizes if you want to share that for people. And I could give you the link to the video too here.
Yeah, send me that as well.
Here is that video link if you guys want to go see it. I mean, that's a huge difference, man. Look at the Sea Kings with M193 ball at shooter's ear goes from 148.6 to where is it? 190 to 134.8. So 13 decibel difference at shooter's ear. That's right. Not only can you hear that, but you could feel that when you shoot the gun, right? It's so much smoother. There's no rise. The bolt's not coming back extra fast. That is the best tuned system we have found. Like, it shoots so good. And every agency I've ever brought that gun to, whether it be FBI or DEA or your local SWAT team. They all shoot that and look at me like, but they're stuck because they're like, well, what if I want to go in without a can? I'm like, well, why the hell would you want to go in with a 10-inch gun without a can? Like, is that a real choice? Like,
your teammates, everybody else in that room isn't going to like it if you got to shoot. That's for sure.
Right. But I think, we're going to see more and more. Like, I know Proof does restricted gas ports now, and Ballistic Advantage is doing them because that's, I think, where we get our 10.3-inch barrels from. We get them with 058s, and man, that's awesome, dude. It is so good with a Dominus on the end.
Yep. Richie, you're talking about suppressor covers. They actually do. I think you guys are a dealer for Armageddon gear as well. I know we've got suppressor covers, and we're also a direct dealer for them too. But Armageddon gear, you can go to our website. You can probably go to their website as well. But they actually make suppressor covers specific to the Thunder Beast suppressors, as well as more generic suppressor covers that'll fit. They have them in high temp and standard temp. Both are high temp essentially, but if you're going to go with a gas gun that you're going to run at a high rate of fire, you want to go with the high temp suppressor covers, regardless of what brand you go with.
OG Steve. So a lot of the gas blocks, especially the ones right now on the market, they're not adjustable enough. Is the problem, is that we found it's either shut off or too much. Right now, the best one I'm aware of is the Rifle Speed. They have some cool offerings and they work well, and you can change the little plunger that goes in and restricts the gas flow. They even have different sizes of that. So it's pretty slick system. If you guys haven't checked out Rifle Speed and you're into shooting suppressed gas guns, you probably should check out Rifle Speed.
Yeah, I'm just looking those up right now. I hadn't heard of them either.
They're pretty slick. I don't know if I have something on here.
I'll do some more research on that.
This safe is full of gas, is full of bolt guns. But even this little 12-inch 308 machine gun I have here, I have this LWRC.
LWRC, like PWS, has an adjustable gas block, don't they?
Yeah, so they have an adjustable, but again, it's not adjustable enough, right? And they sent me this gun to test with some cans because they were, fulfilling a foreign contract with this gun and all suppressors, and it was easier for them to send me a gun. This was back when Form 3s were still taking 3 months, remember those days?
Yeah.
So it was easier for them to send me the gun and us to turn it into a machine gun for testing than me wait 3 months to form them a can. And I ended up beating the shit out of the gun so bad, I sent it back to them and I said, look, you really just need to go with a smaller gas port because we're getting too much gas. The adjustment system that you have is not adjustable enough,
Right.
And it took a little hemming and hawing, but they finally sent me this one with quite a bit smaller gas port, and it runs much better and doesn't beat itself up anymore. So we'll see how they implement that for stuff that they sell for suppressed,
Yeah. I have several of the primary weapon systems rifles, and they have a 3-position adjustable gas block, and
that's not enough.
better than nothing. But like you said, you're still getting significant blowback. And
especially now too, is that we're getting cans with very good suppression levels. Like our Ultra 7, the Ultra 7's a tough can. It could take a beating, like the Dominus. The problem is it just doesn't have that retention to hold it in place, basically. But I kind of want it all. I own a suppressor company. I want it quiet at the muzzle. I don't want to market a can as flow-through design.
Right.
If you want a flow-through design can, run the Ultra 5. Be super, super small. Get the same suppression rating those bigger cans are getting, and run a smaller, lighter package. And actually, quite a few teams actually do that, right? They realize the game. They want as small and light as possible, and we sell a lot of Ultra 5s to units. That's what they do. They run the Ultra 5. It's flow through by design because it's so small, right? It suppresses really well. I don't think there's a a better 5-inch suppressor out there. I've done some K-Can videos I've posted where you can see them all tested. It's lighter and it's quieter than all the other 5-inch cans out there, like noticeably. So now if you just control your gas, you're rocking. You know, you have a super small can, super lightweight that will serve you well on an AR for most people.
Sure. And talk a little bit about that. I talked about it in my review of the Ultra, or actually the Dominus SR, but talk a little bit about why some of your guns or your suppressors are full auto rated versus not. And
the only difference really is that SR mount, because when you are simply using the CB mount, which is a standard tomb, you know, thread over muzzle brake design, there's no way to keep the can in place for long, sustained semi-automatic strings or full auto burst or full auto fire, because all the vibration and stuff that happens,
yeah,
you need that secondary retention just to keep the can from backing off. So
right.
that's the big difference. The Ultras are actually very tough. It's just
there's absolutely no difference in quality or material thickness or anything like that, right?
No, it's just the retention system. And if you like I said, it's application too, right? Like some people want as small and as light as possible, and they're not really rocking and rolling with the machine guns. So
sure,
it's not needed. They don't want the extra weight and length that the mounts add. Our 3D cans, 3D printed. You know, right now there's quite a few people printing cans. Every can we make is still the lightest and quietest for its form factor, for its size. So I think maybe in the future 3D might get a little better, but right now it's not. I don't think it's all that. I haven't seen a 3D printed can that has really impressed me. And as a manufacturer, it takes a bit of time. It's not very fast to print. I don't like the finish of the printed cans. I mean, they don't look like the cans we have now. So I think in the future, yeah, that it might be the way to go, but I think we're still a ways off because, again, I don't see a can as quiet as anything we make, printed or not. So if I'm going to go to printing, there has to be a reason to do it.
I actually have a 3D printed can being sent to me to do some testing, and I just recently saw one of those up close, and man, that thing looks like it just looks boogered up. I mean, it is not a refined, and I don't know if it's just that particular company or all of them. There's only a few.
It's the way it is right now. It's a rough finish inside. Like, you know, you can get a can printed and turn the outside of the can, right, to make it look a little better, but the inside's still going to be rough. All the TBAC traditional battlefield do offer flow through. Well, that's what I was just talking about. Flow through to me just means loud. It's a marketing ploy, the word flow through.
Right.
If you want a flow through TBAC can, like I said, you run the Ultra 5. It's shorter, it's lighter, and as quiet as those bigger, heavier flow through cans. Flow through is just a marketing thing for gas guns. It just means my can is not very effective. I don't know how else to put it. Suppressors should be quiet. And if you want a quiet gas gun, you have to deal with your gas block and do something and make it good. Watch that video I just sent a link to and shared the data. You know, 12, 14 decibel difference at shooter's ear that's massive. That's a lot.
And that's the other thing. That's what most people don't understand is that, you know, the decibel rating, you know, that is an exponential scale. You know, something that is 10 decibels versus 20 decibels, that's not twice as loud. That's many factors.
No. Yeah,
it's exponentially louder.
Doubling, right? So it's I don't know, it's all pretty interesting in general. I think the industry in general is moving forward. I think a big step will be having a true standard, you know, a true standard that anybody with the right equipment can replicate. Anybody could call bullshit on somebody if they think they post something that's not right. we'll get there. It's taken a little time, but we're going to get there. I do give our engineers a little bit of time to mess with 3D printed stuff. But again, the technology right now for the price of the machines and how long it takes them to print, it really doesn't make sense unless you make something, like I said earlier. Why, unless it's better than what's out there, why make a printed can just to say it's printed?
Yeah.
It's cheaper and more cost effective and faster to cut them on, the higher end machines we run. So it just doesn't make sense to me.
No. Well, what do you think is besides them establishing a standard? And by the way, do you feel like most suppressor companies are on board with that, actually coming to agreeing on a set testing standard?
Yeah, I think we're pretty close. Like I said, the last call we had about almost 30, I think, companies represented on the call. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Everybody I've spoke to, I spoke to Mike Pappas and Todd at Dead Air, and I spoke to the Rugged guys, and I spoke to Greeno over at Griffin, and Diligent Defense, and Andrew at Otter Creek. We try to be open, and I tell people, even like the small suppressor companies that don't have the money to buy a Pulse right now, send me your suppressor. I'll mirror it for you. I'll shoot you the little videos I shoot. I'll send you a sound wave to look at. We're not afraid of competition. I come from a competition life, competition with racquetball and then racing mountain bikes professionally. I think competition makes everybody better.
100%.
I'm not afraid of competition and people getting better. You know what I mean? It makes me have to stay sharp. So we are all for sharing our knowledge with the Pulse system and seeing the stuff we see, being able to separate the sonic crack and see what's happening and where, and that's important stuff for designing suppressors, I'm all for teaching everybody how to do that. And I said, we've had several companies come out to our barn. We are actually, I talked to Josh over at AAC at SHOT Show, and we have some ideas going back and forth to invite everybody in the industry to our barn for a day or two and try to just get a massive data dump, have everybody bring their cans, use the same host. We'll have a bolt gun host and a Mark 18 host, I guess. And
it's a decibel rating party.
Yeah, and just have a massive data dump for a couple days. Yeah, let everybody
that'd be cool.
Bring their stuff and just shoot a shit ton of unedited iPhone videos, because I'll film every gun every can that gets tested, and I'll post every one.
What do you think is the next big change, would you say, besides, like I said, getting on a standardized scale there? But what do you foresee, or maybe something that you guys are playing with, the next big technological step forward on suppressors?
It will probably have to come from printing at some point. Someone's going to come up with something. But right now, a can like the Magnus, right? So do I need to make the Magnus quieter than it is? Or is game now just simply keep that suppression and try to be smaller, right? Because like the Magnus is a good example. It gets the blast of a 20-inch 308 to about 125 dB. That is well below the sonic crack at the muzzle, because the sonic crack at the muzzle is about 132.5. So we can't do anything about the sonic crack, right? It's going to be there. So now it's like, okay, well, what about, trying to make it smaller? And that might have to come from printing. I mean, it hasn't yet. We're still coming up with stuff and cutting billet parts. And the other thing with billet is I still think billet's stronger.
Yeah.
Because I've seen printed cans not survive some of the testing that we do,
Right.
So they say it's 99% density of, I don't know if I quite believe that, tell you the truth.
Well,
but
if
I'm pretty skeptical. I like to be skeptical.
If you're selling titanium 3D printers, you're probably going to say whatever you need to say to get it out there. No, that's
right.
Pretty.
So here's a good thing. A lot of people metal injection mold. They MIM their baffles.
Yeah, MIMs. Yeah.
Right? So we had a company hounding us for a while. So we finally just sent them a standard baffle and said, yeah, do some for us. And we want to test. It was basically like a simple ultra baffle. When we released the Ultra 9 and the Ultra 7, those new generations, we chopped a 300 Win Mag to, I think, 14.5 inches. You know, we have an SBR bolt gun that we tested on. And I think it was 12 rounds at a time as fast as you can to get the can up to temperature. We put a carpet fan on it and put an air hose in the breech to cool it until you can grab it with your hand and then do it again. We did over 4,000 rounds like that. Guess how many rounds the MIM, we welded up 3 MIM cans. Guess how many rounds the MIM cans took?
I don't know.
The first can broke on the first shot. First shot, just shredded, just blew apart. And the second can survived the first shot and broke on the second shot. We didn't shoot the third one. We just saved it to show them that, you know, they claim 97, 98% density of billet, but obviously this is nowhere near as strong as what we're cutting.
Right.
And, you know, the guy was pretty, he said, oh, it's the way you weld and blah, blah, blah. I was like, well, why doesn't it mess up the welds on all billet parts? You know, you MIM these parts. Why is it different? And, you know, at that point, they don't have answers for you. It's just, but so-and-so uses MIM. And yeah, well, that's why I'm saying our cans are better. So, yeah, just because we're pushing technologies doesn't mean it's the shit.
Sure. Last question for me, and folks, if you got any other alibis for Ray, throw those up there now, and we're gonna let him get to bed. I'm sure he has other things to do. Of course, it is like 2 hours earlier there for you.
Yeah, it's only 6:30 here, bro.
With one of the questions I meant to ask you earlier on that 50 cal can being as long as it is, what type of are you seeing any sort of increased muzzle velocities out of that?
I haven't set up my lab radar.
Lab radar. Yeah.
I haven't messed with the lab radar yet. Right now, it's more important stuff. Literally beating the hell out of them, like in that video. You know, thousands and thousands of rounds like that. On-off repeatability and stuff, just to make sure that something that long isn't having adverse effects on long barrels. But honestly, so far it's been awesome. But I think what we're going to see is I think you'll see agencies like the police agencies and stuff that do have 50s in their arsenal. They'll probably chop their 50s to 16 or 18 inches and run that full length can like in that video, because it brings it back to a more normal size.
Right.
And it's not like police are trying to snipe people at 1,500 yards. Like they want to shoot that engine block with an AP round, you know?
Sure.
You could still do that with a 16, 18 inch, 20 inch barrel effectively. So I think it'll see us. I don't know. I'm thinking we'll maybe see it change the 50 game a little bit.
Well, I mean, you know, it's not like the 50 cals. You can lose some velocity and still be okay for 99% of all uses. There's no doubt about it.
750 AMAX hitting something, even if it's only going 2,500 feet per second instead of 27 or 28.
Yeah,
it's still gonna leave a mark.
Yeah. It's ridiculous. Well, listen, Ray, I really appreciate, man, you know, you taking the time and coming on means a lot to me. I really appreciate that. I definitely want to get up there and spend some time up there, maybe come up there and do a little video of your shop and check out whatever you let me.
You can come on out. You can bring some cans to the barn. You need to shoot a barn video.
Yep. Love to do that.
You can explain.
Listen, folks, we always appreciate. Yeah. Would love to get out there. And I just want to get out to Wyoming anyhow. I may just end up staying out that way. Folks, we really appreciate everybody tuning in, especially, again, you know, the folks that come in every single week. We really appreciate that. And again, if you got any questions for me that you think of later, I'll shoot it over to Ray.
You could email me. It's simple enough. Ray@thunderbeastarms.com. Drop me an email.
There it is. Ray@thunderbeastarms.com. Ray@thunderbeastarms.com. But yeah, look, we really appreciate your time, folks. We always appreciate you tuning in. We always appreciate the support. We got a lot of stuff going on. I was just out at the racetrack all day getting some footage for our upcoming driving courses, both on-road and off-road. I think you guys are going to really enjoy that. Well, anyways, Ray, thanks again. We appreciate your time. Look forward to getting that Magnus in. You got me all psyched up about that for sure now.
Let me know when
I'm
you
looking
got
forward
it.
to. I will. And you guys stay armed, stay ready. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Thanks. Be good.